All right, good evening and welcome to Futbol En Vivo on Club Deportes Season 2, Episode 34. We are every week on clubdeportes.com. Be sure to follow us on the platform formerly known as Twitter, at Futbol Austin, Futbol Austin. Be sure to follow Club Deportes at Club Deportes. For all the latest and greatest sports news and commentary, well, you have to go to a website known for its outstanding journalistic integrity. That's clubdeportes.com. I am your host, Eric McCoy, and I am joined by a man who says MLS Next Pro is way, way, way more exciting than MLS.
Absolutely.
It's Jorge Chavez.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's a fun watch.
It is indeed.
And I probably a lot of fun watch for current Austin FC fans.
Yes, if you're missing playoff soccer in Austin this year,
if you really wanted to see it,
yes,
you go down to Parmer.
Just drop down a level. MLS Next Pro, and I tell you,
just a little bit. Sure.
Yeah, exactly, but it's still a very high standard.
Yes,
of play.
Absolutely.
As you may have noticed, no David Alvarez this week.
So it'll be a quieter episode, I think.
It'll be a little more subdued this week, I think it's fair to say. David is busy listening to Duran Duran's Hungry Like the Wolf in celebration of last evening's news.
Yeah.
So let's not waste any time here, Jorge. Let's get right down to business.
Yeah.
So 5:17 p.m. Sunday evening. What were you doing yesterday evening at 5:17 p.m., Jorge?
I was watching football, American football.
Okay. You weren't watching the Cowboys yet. I know you're a Cowboys fan. They did not have a good evening.
They got destroyed later in the evening.
Yes.
But should have been a premonition.
Yes.
Of Austin FC's outburst against what we saw in the Cowboys 49ers game. But yeah.
Yeah, so for those unaware, and if you're watching this video, I'm pretty sure you are aware, but Austin FC had a press release yesterday at 5:17 p.m. on Sunday, and they kind of buried the lead because the lead of this press release was some scouting department moves, which I actually think are pretty interesting, and we can get into those as well.
Yeah, we can get into that.
So I think some good stuff there, but kind of buried below that was, I'm going to quote Sporting Director Rodolfo Borrell here. He says, "I believe Josh and his staff deserved increased levels of support from our scouting network, and we intend to deliver that support immediately. Josh is a very good young head coach, and although results this year are disappointing, we are fortunate to have a coach with his level of commitment and knowledge. I am confident that he is the right leader for this team." I could just hear David just screaming somewhere.
Blowing up right now. There's steam coming out of every orifice in his body.
And it is incredible. So, Wolff in? It sounds like, Jorge. Yay?
Wolff in is a party of one. Looks like
it would appear. I mean, what are your thoughts? You have recently expressed that you have become part of the Wolff Out Brigade.
I have turned the corner, yes.
So what are your thoughts upon hearing this news? Is it just pure rage? Like, how do you feel right now?
I don't think he has read the room. Read the city, for that matter. Borrell. I still trust in Borrell's process, but it sounds like they're blaming the wrong people here. Mm-hmm. They got rid of Junco and probably deserve it because he didn't really do a good job of scouting at all.
No. I don't think really you can disagree with any of the scouting department moves. The scouting on this team has been bad. I think for
starting from the first one,
the very beginning.
The very beginning.
Yes.
And so, Tony Cardone, who's the president of Austin Athletic, put a very good point that it should be a caveat. And Josh Wolff's building of a team. It was during COVID, so it was hard to scout people. Mm-hmm. It was hard to have people, watch people play and all this kind of stuff. So he was starting from way behind the starting line. So I can concede that. I can concede that was a brand new club. They had the turmoil of it was going to save the crew folks, and so it was starting with all of that, and in theory it sounded like a good idea. Precourt knows Josh Wolff. He's known him for many years, so there's a little bit of I wouldn't say loyalty, but the devil put it that way. And so it sounded like a good plan to have him come in. He ex-player, knows a lot of people, was involved with the U.S. men's national team, so he's got a little bit of experience with that, but it just didn't work out that way. And so it hasn't gone well. I mean, a lot of people were upset that, they overachieved, like Borrell said in his in one of his initial press conferences that this team frankly overachieved. And I can see a lot of that point now. But I just don't see it. I don't see what Borrell sees that makes this statement from Austin FC give him that much confidence in Josh Wolff. I don't see it. Maybe it's just my I turned on my fan hat and I see all these losses and then I see everybody complaining about it. Then I turn on my quote journalistic hat and look at the tactics and the substitutions and the things that we observe that maybe the fans don't really observe, and I don't see it. So I don't see it from any hat that I put on.
Okay, you are not alone in that, Jorge. I think there are many that share that opinion. And it should be noted, Junco, I believe, may have only been scouting for Austin FC too. It is a message that we just got from producers. So perhaps if you don't like the first team, he may not be the guy to point fingers at. But still, I do think there is some merit considering just, again, the weakness of this roster overall of having just kind of a full clearing out of that whole area. Right. I do think makes sense. But Borrell, we're recording this on Monday night. Tomorrow morning, Tuesday, 10 a.m., he is going to speak at the St. David's Performance Center press conference. I mean, what does he need to say to kind of help calm the nerves of a very just upset and irate fan base right now?
He has a very tall order to fill. He needs to placate a fan base that is very engaged on social media right now.
And if you see any post that Austin FC do, they can say, here's a new hat we're releasing, and it's Wolff out, Wolff out every comment.
And the fan bases are buying all the merchandise and all the jerseys, and they have some new shirt that comes out, and they purchase all these things. So, it's great that the Austin population is enthused with Austin FC, anything Austin FC. But eventually the dam's going to break, and they're going to demand answers. And Borrell's going to have to provide them. He has now firmly put himself in front of the fan base saying that I believe in Josh, when the rest of the fan base does not. I mean, I think he's, we can bring up Adrian Healy's post, which is very, very interesting.
Yeah, this is it. While you bring that up, I was going to say, Adrian Healy, as a broadcaster for Austin FC, not exactly known for the strongest of criticism towards Austin FC. So this tweet surprised me.
Yeah.
You got to pull it up right here.
I'm going to read it directly from him. He said, regardless of where you stand on the issue, by the global standards of modern pro soccer management, Josh Wolff is extraordinarily lucky to still be coach of Austin FC after 3 seasons in the job. A record of 37, 52, and 21 after 110 games in all competitions would be fatal in 99% of cases.
I think he's right. I really do. And here's the thing. Like I've classified myself as a Wolff indifferent. And here's what I'll say. I mean, look around the league, though. I mean, we've seen Adrian Heath lose his job. Wayne Rooney lose his job. Bob Bradley lose his job. And
Frazier.
Frazier. I look at
Savarese. I mean,
Savarese.
You just go down the list.
And I look at someone like Rooney, who just lost his job with DC. And if you look at DC, clearly there are issues that extend beyond the coach. I mean, Ben Olsen leaves DC and then goes to Houston and has turned them into one of the most...
Turns them around.
Yeah, one of the most exciting teams in the league. So clearly it's not just the coach there, but when you have such an extended run of disappointment, there's usually a fall guy.
There's the two quotes that Adrian Healy put out, and, you know... In effect, he said what a lot of us were thinking. We believe Josh is a 1%er. He's that special. Who has blurted those words out in all of Austin FC fandom?
Even me, who's more in Wolff's corner than most, has never said he's a part of the 1% of elite coaches in the world.
No,
I mean that's really the issue, though, because we don't really have any. That was his first head coaching job. There is no evidence to point to.
Right.
Like I can sit there and say I don't think Wolff is the biggest part of the problem, and I really don't. I really think that it is the roster.
It was a lot of combinations.
The roster.
Yeah, it was
I think that is the most important thing. This is interesting. I want to come back to this in just a second, but for now, I want to kind of just finish up a couple of thoughts on it. But that is a very interesting table that we're going to get into.
Yes.
But as it pertains to Wolff, I mean, again, I think there are bigger issues with this team than Wolff, but I can't necessarily say, even though I don't think he's the problem, I can't with confidence at all say he's the solution. He's a part of the solution. Like I don't think I can do that.
I don't see, and one of the things that business people would understand and politicians would understand is the buck stops here. Mm-hmm. And the buck stops with Josh Wolff. He should be the one to be able to answer what all these things are happening, whilst all these things are happening. And, you know, any fan base in any part of the world does not have the patience for, like our colleague David would like to say, 33.5 or 35 or whatever percentage, they're not going to be on your corner. And they like to see winning.
Adrian Healy and David Alvarez, big Wikipedia guys.
Yeah.
Big fans of Wikipedia.
Right. And I want to bring in maybe a little, a metaphor a little bit, or a comparison, if you will. Bill Belichick. Big in the 90s and the 2000s. He had the great players. Mm-hmm. Not always had the highest salary and that kind of thing. But he's lost the last couple of games, 70-3.
I can't
You think Patriot fans are patient that, it's just a lull? No, they want him gone.
He's past it. He didn't have it anymore.
And this is a guy that's won 6-7 Super Bowls for that fan base. So if he's under that kind of pressure, I don't understand the protection that Josh Wolff is enjoying right now. I really don't. And I think the fandom is right there with me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And since we're talking a bit about money, buck stops here, could we get that table that was so brilliantly put up just a second ago? Okay, here we go. This is MLS salary outlay spring summer 2023. So this is not going to include Inter Miami's all of their.
Yeah, they have blown up away from Toronto.
Yeah, they're going to be a little ahead of Toronto.
A little bit higher.
But this is really interesting. Look at those first 5 teams there. You'll notice
Toronto out of the playoffs, Galaxy out of the playoffs, Atlanta. They're in the playoffs. DC out of the playoffs. Austin out of the playoffs.
What does that tell you? When you see this, what is it? What does it tell you?
I was surprised. When Austin was so high up in the salary.
Okay, I was a little surprised by that as well.
I know that. But look at number 2, St. Louis, with such little money that they were able to produce
first place
in the East. I mean,
West.
The West. Sorry. So, you know, they're doing very well. Orlando's doing very well right now.
RSL doing very well.
RSL doing very well.
Philly.
Yeah. And so those are probably outliers, I think. But it goes to show what a good scouting department does for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because they mixed in a lot of St. Louis went the European route. I think they based their roster on European players. So, but they mixed in a couple of Brazilians and people like that, and so they were able to analyze the best players that they could get at a certain amount of price. And this is the first year. So I don't understand how Austin FC could not have replicated that same formula.
Yeah, and I would say, again, everyone is not happy right now in the Austin FC fan base, but if you want reason for optimism, it's the first part of that press release. We got 5 new scouts coming in. They're going to be stationed throughout Europe and South America. The revamping of the scouting department, to me, is going to be very critical.
Very helpful.
Yeah, and overseen by a guy with Borrell's background in pedigree, I think is really, really exciting. And when I look at that list that we just saw, I mean, what to me it says is that there is just so much inefficiency with MLS spending, that teams are willing to spend money, but they're spending it stupidly. Yeah. And so if you have the right scouts in place, and Austin FC are willing to spend, I mean, they're 5th on that list, so spending money isn't necessarily the problem. Now you got the scouts, go find the right players. That's what that tells me there.
Look at LAFC. Their best player by far right now is Dennis Bouanga.
So good.
Had you heard about him previously?
Never heard of him.
Not a name guy. But the scouting department for LAFC found this gem.
Yeah, they found a lot of gems. I mean, they really are good. I mean, obviously the Bale, Chiellini, those signings attract the headlines.
It's a good Carlos Vela. It's a good mix.
Mm-hmm.
They were able to mix them together. Excuse me for if my hiccups are getting in the way, but
it's an emotional time.
It's emotional time. So they were able to combine those types of players, and so that's going to be nothing but helpful to have a guy like Carlos Vela as kind of your mentor, and for the defense, kind of have Chiellini as kind of their mentor. So they covered their bases, and so Austin FC, I think, went too top heavy in the DPs by signing players that, signing Alex Ring as a DP and then putting him on the bench, probably not the best of moves.
Yeah, I mean that's a case of
he didn't do anything to promote that demotion, if you will.
No, and that's a whole conversation that we can have as to like when did the
Thank you.
Baseball playoffs are going on right now.
I know our producer is getting in the way.
I'll take a water as well. You never know when the hiccups might come for you.
Yeah, it might be contagious there.
Yeah, but I think you're right. It's really, to me, with the ring, he's a DP, and then he gets demoted from the captaincy. That is almost a situation where it's like, the left hand doesn't know what the right's doing. You have a front office making certain decisions, personnel decisions, contract decisions that aren't in alignment with what the coach actually sees is best for the team. Right. And, again, we can argue who's right and who's wrong in that situation. But at the very least, synergy between those two parties is quite helpful.
Yeah, I would have thought when Claudio Reyna was still at the helm of sporting director that he would have better communication with Josh Wolff.
You would think, former teammates.
And so if they weren't communicating, I don't think Claudio Reyna would have spent that much money on Alex Ring if he knew that Josh was going to put him on the bench.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that would have worked. So there's some miscommunication there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, going forward, Jorge, Wolff in, people aren't happy. What can Austin FC do in this offseason from a player acquisition standpoint that might placate this fan base a little bit? And it's interesting that you mentioned Bouanga and how, no one had heard of Bouanga, but clearly this was a good signing.
Yes.
Theoretically, Austin FC could sign the next Denny Bouanga this offseason And people still aren't going to be excited about 2024 because until we see that player realize the potential on the pitch, we won't know if he's any good or not.
I think what's going to have to happen is a complete overhaul of the roster.
I think we're going to see it.
And I think we're going to have to see Borrell's going to have to revisit some of those contracts that were signed by the previous director.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got all those. We had a show. If you want to go back a few weeks ago, we did a show on all the free agents. And I think the simple thing to do from a Borrell perspective might just say, we're not renewing any of these guys, to be honest. And I think Rigoni might be someone they would look to move on, possibly even Azardas, just because of the contract that he's on. So, we'll see. But I do expect, pretty much a full overhaul.
And it not only does it have to be an overhaul of the roster, but a move towards a youth of the roster. Mm-hmm. I foresee Austin FC promoting a lot of the Austin FC 2 players.
As well they should. They're having an outstanding season.
Noel, CJ Fodry.
Incredible goal from Noel last night. That first time finish.
There's a lot of guys that have proven themselves week in, week out. And so I foresee at least 5 or 6 of those guys coming on board.
And that's something, too. We start talking about, trying to placate the fan base. Yeah. The fan base is excited for Austin FC, too.
Oh, yeah. So they show up,
Yeah, so promoting some of those guys can help keep people on board and keep people excited.
I think can help placate the fan base.
Yes.
A little bit.
A little bit.
But, they could go, I think it was... there's a lot more to it of the 5 scouting people that they're going to get, because it depends on what they're going to get. If they're going to go after a guy like, I don't know, a name guy like Messi and Busquets and those guys, that's not going to happen.
Frankly, I don't see Borrell as being
Precourt is no Beckham. He does not have that kind of money and that kind of pull.
Yeah.
So
not quite the looks.
Not quite the looks either. So I don't think they're going to go that direction. But they could go St. Louis direction. I think they could use them as a template. And FC Cincinnati maybe, because as we saw in the graphic, they're not that high up in the salary. We saw St. Louis second through the bottom, FC Cincinnati somewhere in the lower.
Yeah, they're not exactly like big.
They're not
spenders.
burning money to get players. So that's Austin FC's probable roadway to out of mediocrity.
And
it's going to be hard to get excited about this Austin FC team next year if they don't make moves that are going to be impacting the roster.
Yeah, and I think you bring up some very valid points there, Jorge. And here's one of the things that I would say, too, is that, this press conference tomorrow from Borrell, I think is really big. And I look at like St. Louis. So obviously, they're near the bottom there in terms of spending. Their sporting director, Lutz Pfannenstiel, this guy is hilarious. Like, he is a very, outsized personality. He is someone that I think, even if you're like, who the heck are these players he's bringing in, he has this kind of, charismatic cult of personality. You believe in him. You buy into his vision. And I think we need to see a bit of that from Borrell, and frankly, a bit of that from Wolff in his press conferences as well. Something to kind of, from a PR standpoint, kind of get people back on board, show a bit of personality, give people something they can buy into, something they can believe in. Because, I think the confidence in the team is certainly wavering.
Yeah, it's not there. And so I would hate to see for the fan base to just abandon Austin FC.
Do you think that's going into 2024? What's Q2 going to look like? Like opening night, 2024 season? Is it still going to be packed? Empty seats? Like what's going to happen there?
I think what's going to happen is that renewals are going on right now, and so any of us that are tied into next year are pretty much tied into next year. So, but I think if people show up as a protest moves Austin FC has and has not made. If they don't feel, Borrell has to instill confidence in the fan base.
Do you think that's possible? Do you think there's things that can happen this offseason that could bring people back on board?
I mean, the way he's looking at Josh Wolff, knowing how the fan base feels about that. Look at the fan base.
A lot of green there, and I'm not talking about the jerseys.
A lot of green seats there.
Yes, the seats.
And so, I honestly expected there to be some sort of demonstration of their displeasure with the roster. So, it's a carbon copy of every single game that we've seen this year. People just ignoring Josh Wolff and can't hardly believe what's going on. So
and LAFC can't stop scoring, and it's coming from everywhere.
It's got to be a dramatic change, and I think Josh Wolff is not going to do it. So, it would have been interesting to see in this press conference that good luck in the next endeavor. We'll be looking at new coaches. People are walking out.
And I don't think this is full time here. I think that there are still minutes to be played when this is occurring.
Yeah, but after
like 5 minutes to go, I believe. Okay. Oh wow, a whole lot of minutes still to go.
I think after the second goal, the writing was on the wall.
I would even say after the first goal.
Yeah, and because technically they scored 5 goals on us, but
yes, the Chiellini, he's a gentleman, and a classic gentleman. He's going to give us a goal at the end.
So I'm dumbfounded. I'm speechless onto what can be done to instill that enthusiasm into Austin FC.
Yeah, I think the offseason. Look, the scouting department changes for me. I think theoretically they're very exciting, but at the same time, it'll take us a while before we see if these hires are the right hires. It takes the scouting department. You have to give it some time to see if the decisions that were made were the correct.
And it depends where the scouts are going to be. I mean, if you say Europe, South America, sure.
Yeah, I mean, are they going to be
countries?
Maybe Brazil? Are they going to be
Brazil,
Spain,
Paraguay?
Yeah, exactly. I think I've seen enough Paraguay's talent.
Colombia somewhere.
Or Colombia's not.
Are we going to see people in Argentina, in Brazil?
Yeah.
In Europe, are they going to have guys in France, in England, in Spain, or are they going to have guys in Bulgaria? In Switzerland.
Yeah, that is a very valid point. So as theoretically exciting as it is to have this revamped scouting department, it's going to take us some time before we can really say, definitively thumbs up to that.
Yeah, the Borrell definitely has a lot of work cut out for him this offseason.
Absolutely,
a lot of work.
Absolutely. Okay, we're going to get to the highlights of the game in just a second. Just real quick before we do that, though.
Yeah.
I want to play devil's advocate for just a quick second, as I'm known to do on this program.
Sure.
I was watching some Premier League yesterday, Jorge. A little Arsenal versus Man City. I'm sure you're aware of these teams. Arsenal, a big win. Big 1-0 win for Arsenal. Mikel Arteta. I want to focus a bit on Mikel Arteta because if we go back a couple years ago, Mikel Arteta at Arsenal, a team that's won Premier League titles, played in Champions League finals, not that long ago had a manager, Arsene Wenger, who was finishing in 4th every season, which was enough to get people to fly planes over the stadium with signs that said Wenger out. I mean, that's how unhappy they were with fourth place finishes. Arteta had back-to-back 8th place finishes at Arsenal.
Yeah.
And now look at the guy. He was in a title race all of last season. They just knock off Pep City. I mean, is there Here's what I'll extend this comparison just a little bit further, because I know everyone's going to say, like, yeah, who's to say Wolff's the next Arteta?
Yeah, Wolff's not. Yeah.
But there's any similarity there. The one thing that I think was prevalent in Arteta's Arsenal in those 8th place finishes is that there was a very clear playing style. Very clear. You knew how they wanted to play. Right. They just didn't have the players. And then over the course of the last couple of seasons, the players have improved, and up has gone the standard of play.
The talent has improved.
Yes. Yeah. Austin FC, Josh Wolff, I do think there is a very clear playing style. Whether you like it, you don't like it, plenty of people don't like it.
Yeah.
They have clear principles to their play, which I think is one of the reasons why Borrell speaks highly of him, because he recognizes his positional play style. He recognizes that Pep is of that style. Arteta obviously comes from that coaching tree. So if you want to have some optimism here, I look at that and go, here's a guy, we know this style, which makes it a lot easier to scout, because you can say, okay, we need this profile of player in this position.
Right.
We need that profile of player in that position, because the identity is so crystal clear.
Yeah.
We saw it with Arsenal and Arteta. I think we see it with Wolff and Austin FC. So potentially, if some better players can come in, I'm gonna be just a smidge optimistic that maybe Wolff could turn this thing around. So I'll just put that out there.
I've already said on X that there's the hashtag of Borrell out.
David was a trendsetter. He was a trendsetter.
That's a little harsh.
It's making the rounds.
Yeah,
sure.
and so I would definitely trust in Borrell's experience, what he sees, because he's been behind or right next to Pep Guardiola for many, many years.
Oh yeah.
So he pretty much knows, like you alluded to, the kind of player profile that needs to be in certain positions, and not just the starters, but the second string guy, the third string guy. And so there's layers of talent that is just not there in Austin FC. And part of that was the scouting, that they thought that they could have this guy do this job here, and he doesn't. That just not panned out. And so a guy like Redes probably should have been scouted as highly as he was, because he may show greatness on practice, but he's not showing it in the field.
But that's where Rogoni really shines as well, practice.
And Pochettino, just name all those guys. and that's not where you show your prowess. You show your prowess on the field, not on the practice field. So I think it's going to help a lot, the scouting, but it's not going to be an immediate change. And so I don't know if the Austin FC fan base has the patience for it.
Yeah, and here's the thing. The results need to come quickly, right? Because if we're sitting there in June, July, and Austin FC are below the playoff line
again,
I just do. David used a great word on last week's show, untenable. Apparently, it is still a little tenable right now, but if you get into next season and this team, again, below the playoff line, June, July, going into the Leagues Cup break, it is beyond untenable. I don't care if it's his fault or not. There has to be a fall guy at that point, and unfortunately, the fall guy is oftentimes the coach. Right. And so that would.
And so some of the blame for all this probably has to fall on Claudio Reyna.
I would put a huge heap of blame on Claudio Reyna.
But he's no longer here anymore.
Yes, thankfully.
So Josh Wolff has had to work with what he's got, but at the same time, they must have worked together, watched tapes together to say, okay, I need this kind of player. Claudio Reyna, what can you get for me? I'm going to show this guy, because my scouts gave me these guys. Which one do you like? I like this one, this one, this one. And so I know that Claudio did his thing with his son, and probably deserve it not to be here anymore, because that was going to be a distraction. But that there was no longer a fall guy after that, other than Josh Wolff.
Yep.
And so, Josh Wolff really needs to take responsibility for a lot of this stuff. I know there were injuries. untimely ones. Cole Manich out for the whole season. Cascante out for several games.
Is Cascante
Leo
being out a big loss?
There wasn't a big loss, to be honest. But Leo Väisänen showed some flash, but kind of
He's
wavered.
Not been the same player coming back from the injury. He's not been the same.
He probably tried to, but he couldn't do it. And I mean, and did score that goal. So there is that. But it's hard to understand what's going to make the Austin fan base tick. What's going to make them satisfied, even if it's a process. But one of the things that I have seen and just throughout is that on some of the games they just didn't have to seem to have the effort, and so their mentality wasn't in the game. After, like I said, in the LAFC game, after the second goal, the team just sort of gave up.
The team was flat. I don't know. That was not a good performance at all.
That's happening way too much. And when that happens, it means that they're not motivated. And I think David, our colleague, would more than agree with us. Who motivates the team?
That'd be the
coaching staff.
That is on the coach.
The coaching staff, because and player after player say it, and even Josh Wolff said it. They want to play for the fans, and they show up, and we show up in all the stadiums, and we do this and we do all that. But that just goes to show that they're not getting prepared because they know that Austin FC fans will show up on the stands, game in, game out, at home or away. And so that's just almost kind of been standard. So I think what needs to happen is, and I was hoping this would happen in this game, is, and we saw a little bit of it, it's just people walking out and not showing up.
Yeah.
And Colorado Rapids fan base did that for a couple games.
Galaxy had that going on. Slightly different reasons, but yeah.
Different. I think it was just a complaint against the management for those two. But obviously, the fan base still loves Precourt. They just don't understand why Precourt is making these decisions. And I think we can get into a little bit more, but I think Precourt's more the finance guy.
I don't know what his soccer IQ is.
I
don't think it's particularly high.
And so if he knows a guy that used to be the assistant of your head coach, and now he's assistant of your head coach in the national team, you sort of think highly of that guy. Maybe not the X's and O's, but the way players respect him, and this and that and the other, right? And so that just didn't transfer over to Austin FC. He just doesn't have the respect of the players.
So one final question before we get to the highlights, because I really want to get your thoughts on this, because I think this is a pretty interesting question here. If I toot my own horn for writing this question. I'm going to think positively for a second here. Let's say Austin FC get off to a good start in 2024. Say they're like, it's July and they're like, second, third in the West, and competitive, playing good football. Things are working. Will this fan base accept Wolff as coach at that point? If the results are there, can they be won back over? Like, is this relationship between coach and fan base, is it damaged beyond repair, or is through winning, is there a path back to this fan base accepting Wolff as coach?
Tough question to answer because I think they're going to need I can't believe I'm saying this, but they're going to need a whole season.
Wow.
Of success.
Whole season
for him to accept them. And I think I don't know if somebody pointed it out that Josh Wolff is now the third longest tenured coach.
He is
in MLS.
Yes.
Behind guys like probably Siggy Smith.
No, not
Siggy.
Vermees at Kansas City.
Yeah,
and
Seattle Sounders.
Yeah, Schmetzer
coach. And so their fan base loves that coach, and so and I don't think too many people are going to shed tears if Josh Wolff is let go. And so, and I think part of the problem was that he would play some players that are 18 years old, kind of plays them all over the place.
Wow, that's a divisive topic, Jorge.
He puts those kinds of players above veterans to the detriment of the team. And so it just visually doesn't look good. It doesn't give a good perception. And do I think Wolfcito is a good player? Yes, I do.
He's a very talented player. I really do.
He has consistently all year been called up by the men's national team under 20s. Mm-hmm. So he's got to have some talent that somebody else.
And we've seen it at OSFC in midfield. I don't know about the other positions that he's played. He actually did play fullback pretty well against DC. I thought he played well.
And so, the problem with doing that is that it's like, how can I say, a solution in search of a problem. He seems to think that Wolff is a solution for a lot of the holes that are in his roster. Mm-hmm. And instead of having him concentrate on one role, he would be an amazing midfielder. He's got a really good working relationship with Danny Pereira.
Yeah, they work outstanding.
Great.
Yeah, partnership.
And if they would have massaged the roster instead of the, God forbid, 4-3-3 that they always used, a 4-4-2 or something like that.
We saw a bit of a 4-2-3-1 these last couple games.
They could have had Wolff as starter, sure, that's fine. As Pereira as starter, sure, that's fine. With Alex Ring and Driussi. That is one heck of a midfield.
Yeah, there's no reason all those
and have
those guys
Rigoni and
can't play
Finley or Rigoni and Zardes or Bruin or whoever, having those four types of guys feeding the two in the front, it would have been an amazing thing to see. We never saw it. They were not played in the positions of strength. And so, unfortunately, I think this happened over and over and over, where the roster dictated a little bit. He tried to mold his roster into a formation instead of molding a formation into the roster, playing to their strengths. And so he was putting him in a difficult position.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
He was putting players in a difficult position to fulfill a role that they maybe didn't feel comfortable fulfilling. Mm-hmm. And so, and he tried to use poor Owen Wolff as a stopgap for a lot of the shortcomings in the roster. Yeah. And as talented as Wolff is, he's not there yet.
Yeah, and he
still needs some seasoning. And even Danny Pereira is not there yet either. If you think about it, because they're both about the same age. They're still got some growing to do. Mm-hmm. But what better players to grow to get some experience than guys playing next to Ring and Driussi?
Absolutely.
In a 4-4-2 or a 3-5-2 or 3-5-3, something different.
Absolutely.
But having those four guys in the field at the same time, I think would have done wonders for the development of both Danny Pereira and Owen Wolff. Not just throw Wolff, as talented as he is, throwing him wherever the field dictates. He was putting him in a bad position.
I think that's an interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, that perhaps all of the moving around of Wolff is actually doing Owen a disservice.
Yeah, exactly.
I think you are onto something.
I would, looking from his perspective, I would be a little bit confused as to where I'm supposed to be, if I'm supposed to attack, if I'm in the defense, if I'm supposed to defend, if I'm in the midfield. You don't really get to know the nuances of each position if you're playing so many positions. And so I think, like you said, I think he gave him a disservice by play. It could also have been a bit of necessity because guys were injured and all this kind of stuff. But I never saw Jimenez on the field. couple times.
Forgot he was even on the team until you just said his name, to be honest.
Yeah. Lundqvist,
who was good when he played? When he played wingback, he was good. Good player.
You know, he didn't play all that much.
Tasso final dice l'arbitro Johan Freeman. Pablo, vittoria contundente.
He didn't play all that much. So there's a lot of guys that probably deserve a little bit more playing time. And so
I think you're right. The way to look at it is that this is a huge demand to be putting on a player that young to have to play this many different roles, and that perhaps using him in all these different positions, again was doing him a disservice. But okay, Jorge.
Yeah.
Believe it or not, there was a game that happened on Saturday, and actually a pretty important one, as it officially eliminated Austin FC from postseason contention. So I thought this was going to be what we mainly talked about, was that. But until 5:17 yesterday. But if we could get the highlights rolling, here we go.
And I think like we talked about this before the show. I felt confident in this game. I thought LAFC was gonna ease the brakes a little bit and not play some of their guys, but no. Once I saw this roster, I said, "Oh man!"
Once you saw Bouanga, Sanchez,
and Hollingshead, and those guys,
Hollingshead, Chiellini out there.
Man, it's not gonna be easy. And so, but again, seeing how they thoroughly handled Colorado fairly well. I mean, 3-0. They probably could have a couple more. I'm sorry, DC United. But once that first goal went in, I said, "Oh."
You knew that was it. There was just no coming back from that. Really.
Yeah. And so.
And if you notice on that first goal, someone loses Bouanga there, number 18, a man who shall remain nameless around these here parts.
Yeah,
not great from
he lost
center back.
Yeah, he lost. They put the ball right where it should have been between Vicen and Cascante. And so, what can you say about this goal? I mean, you can't depend on Stuver saving everything. And as good as he is, I mean,
even Stuver has his limitations.
Stuver has his limitations. I mean.
That's a little uncharacteristic from Brad right there to kind of get hit in someone's face like that. That was interesting. I missed this in the press box, but looking back at these highlights, that was surprising to see.
Yeah, he showed a little bit of fire, but it was a foul. I mean,
it was a foul. It was,
but did it show a little bit of gamesmanship by diving?
Yeah,
sure. But that's what soccer players do.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't fault him for that. I mean, if there was contact, and he's gonna
you got to be careful accusing players of diving. I mean, Roy Keane, he
made a career out of that.
Well, Erling Haaland's dad had his career ended by accusing Roy Keane of diving.
Exactly. So, but like I said, once I saw that second goal, I didn't see it come back in the cards.
No,
there was no way.
Absolutely
and
not.
So, and with Dennis Bouanga still not having his goal yet until the 54th minute.
Well, he actually took the PK, so he had a goal at that point.
But he hadn't really shown that much up to that game, other than that penalty. But after that, it was free reign. I mean.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the ending with an assist, 2 goals. This was Denny Bouanga's night for me. I mean, he was,
and that ball had a particular defensive player had a shot on that goal, and what did he do? He tried to close his legs instead of kicking it out.
Yeah, he's. We talked about the yips with this particular player, and
good God, and.
That just Bouanga again, just to receive that, take that down, doesn't finish, but everything about it
was just and so that's a testament to LAFC, because just a couple of years ago, I mean, they didn't play all that well. They missed the playoffs, if I'm not mistaken. So they were awful.
Mm-hmm.
And so it just goes to show what a couple of seasons of good scouting does for you.
Absolutely. Did you have any hope whenever Vicent had Sisson?
No.
Any
not
inkling
at
of
the 75th minute. No. I mean, it was a nice goal in front of the fan base, but that's about it.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a pretty subdued celebration
pretty
there
subdued
by
celebration.
Supporter section standards there.
Yeah, and so, I mean, good pass by Daniel Pereira, by the way. He put it, and to a right target. Leo Vicent is pretty physical and very good about getting those kinds of headers. So
there's Grandpa Chiellini with the gift
Chiellini.
to Austin FC to close out the match there.
But after that, I mean, there's just nothing there.
So, and that, as we alluded to, that was the loss that, along with FC Dallas drawing with San Jose, that officially eliminated Austin FC.
Thankfully.
Mercifully eliminated Austin FC from postseason contention. Okay, we got and if you didn't believe us, there it is, right there. The E, that designates eliminated. So that is Austin FC, along with LA and Colorado in the West. A question, Jorge. We got about 10 minutes to go.
Yeah.
And this is a hard-hitting question right here. Austin FC didn't make the playoffs in 2023. Would they have made the playoffs if not for trading Diego Fagundes? Fifth place at the time of that trade.
No.
Even with Fagundes, this team still fails to make the postseason.
I think one guy cannot overcome an LAFC drubbing of 4-2.
Well, okay, I'm saying if they don't make that, because you have the whole slew of games before this one.
Right, but I was going to go down the list. I mean, he would have been inconsequential to all of the losses that Austin FC suffered in his wake. And so, unless he scored 2-3 goals in each one of the games or an assist or something, a goal and 2 assists or something, one man cannot overcome all of that. No matter if he's a pillar of the foundation of your team, it's just a guy. And to be fair, he hasn't really done all that much in the Galaxy either.
No.
And so I wouldn't put Fagundes on a pedestal.
Okay.
In as much
so the fan base needs to let this one go.
They need to let it go. Okay. It's done and over. So they got some nice money out of it. They did.
Borrell's got some petty cash to play with.
Okay, player in Memo. So, but honestly, I don't think Memo's coming back.
I don't think so either. He did not feature a whole lot.
Did not feature
in these last few matches. Yeah, I think he's probably gone.
And I
looked okay when he did play.
He looked fine.
Me,
he had some great chances.
Wolff didn't seem to like him.
He didn't. He just was. He's not the same guy as a Fagundes would be. So. The fan base just needs to let it go that one man does not determine the whole season or roster unless it's Messi, and Fagundes isn't a Messi.
No, not quite.
I think what needed to happen was like I said, they needed a whole lot of transfers in this offseason. Get 3 or 4 guys with impact, immediate impact on the team, to be able to make a run for the playoffs, and I just didn't. I mean. Look at. I mean, I don't want to do a comparison, but look at what happened with Miami before Messi and Busquets and those guys. There was just nothing there, but they provided a spark to guys like Taylor and other
Campana, Joseph Martinez in particular. He's a player transformed.
They were right there, and they also just missed the playoffs as well. But again, Messi's Messi. He couldn't have saved this team if his life depended on it. And then he got injured. So it's the same thing with the best. If the best player in the world cannot save your team, what's the Diego Fagundes going to do?
That is
as good as he is. As much as I respect his talent, his length in the league, it's just a guy. He can't do it all.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Jorge, but I mean, this team was in 5th at the time of that trade. And you look at a lot of the games down the stretch. While I don't think the performances were nearly as good as Wolff suggested they were, these were some close games. I mean, you have like a 2-2 with New England, the 2-1 loss to Portland, a lot of one-goal games, a few draws thrown in there, 1-0 to FC Dallas. Games where potentially a Diego Fagundez that with Austin FC anyways was starting to show signs of rounding into form. Does he make the difference and pick this team up an extra 3 points here, 4 points there? And maybe that's enough to actually get this team over the line into the 8th, 9th.
I will say this. I think the Diego Fagundez trade was more detrimental to the rest of the locker room. In the sense that I think
a morale killer.
A morale killer. Yeah. And Josh Wolff, he needed to save his locker room from negative influences. I don't want to say negative, but more like what's the word I'm looking for? I lost the word, but competing messages.
Okay,
that's kind of the word. Because if Fagundez had a certain way of trying to play, and he had the guys on board playing that way, but Josh Wolff had a different way of playing.
Okay.
And he was there. So I think a lot of players were caught in the middle. That do we follow Diego or do we follow?
So you think Fagundez was kind of a divisive presence in the locker room?
I don't want to say divisive, but he was a leading voice in the locker room.
Yeah, I'm sure he'd been.
And so there were two options: do what Diego does, or trade him.
So I actually take a slightly different view of it. Okay. I'm going to go with Borrell's reading of the timeline of events, where he says they get a call from the Galaxy, they want Diego Fagundez. Borrell looks at how much Fagundez is making and says, all right, here you go. I actually, despite the fact that they did seem to have somewhat of a fractious relationship, Fagundez and Wolff, Wolff on the hot seat, coaching for his job, probably didn't want to lose Diego Fagundez. I actually don't think he would have wanted to lose Fagundez. I think that was more of a Borrell move than it was a Wolff move. That's not the popular opinion amongst the fan base, but I think it was more Borrell than Wolff that made that deal happen.
I mean, again, Josh Wolff is the face of the franchise right now. And whatever positives happen, it's on the players. Whatever negatives happen,
you are 100% right about that. Yes. Rightly or wrongly, that is how it is perceived.
That's the way it is. And so the Diego Fagundez trade, a lot of fan base is going to blame Austin, is going to blame Borrell for it. I mean, blame Wolff for it, even though Borrell was the one that probably took the call. But I do, and I do always kind of differentiate with David in this point, is that you do not get rid of one of your pillars of your team. I don't think Borrell cares if how good he is for the fan base.
Borrell, he's not really a touchy-feely, cuddly kind of guy, I don't think. No.
And I think really it was a wake-up call to the fan base that we're going a different direction.
Yes. The mood is about to change.
Yeah, it's not love you till the end. No, it's not that with Borrell. And so, he has a certain way of doing things, cutthroat, because in European soccer, it is cutthroat.
Very cutthroat.
Feelings are set aside for the bottom line, winning. And money. And he saw that as a money thing. And he put it aside because he wants to provide an opportunity to be winning in the future. Now, I totally disagree, and I've always disagreed with David on this, that he wants to see immediate changes right now. Yes. That's not the way the world works. No. It is not the way the world works. There's countless examples of teams that have already been established that have built process like a Man City. Man City did not go from being a loser to the winner like in one season.
Wow.
Arsenal, they were finished 8th?
Yeah, eighth
place
back
2
season.
seasons. You think the fan base was happy about it?
There was a lot of Arteta out. I can assure you.
A whole lot of Arteta out. Where are those fans now?
Probably Arteta in.
And so
sign them up.
If you compare that to a Josh Wolff and the current situation that they are with a Borrell backing the coach, that's got to give Josh Wolff some confidence going into the next season. And so with a better scouting department, I'm hoping things turn around.
Yeah,
I'm hoping things turn around.
Look at that, Jorge. We are concluding this week's show on an optimistic note. Who would have thought? What a pleasant, cordial conversation you and I have had. I don't know if it would have been that way if we were a trio tonight. It would have been a little spicier. Right. But hey, appreciate it, Jorge. Excellent show. Thank you to the fans. Thank you to Club Deportes. Best website on the internet, in my opinion. And I don't just say that because I write for them and host a show on there. It is genuinely the best website on the internet. Thank you to Gio behind the boards. We'll do this again next week.
Con esas tetas